Hey guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with a Varus updated complete guide, and today we're going to be taking a look at, Essence Reaver plus Triforce into AP, which a commenter did mention that he thought was Varus' best build. I kind of debated a little bit, which I did think that Varus building uh ER into Triforce into like more AD stuff works very well as well, but I have to admit that this build does work very well, and you can see that based off of the fact that most of the top players are kind of going for a very similar build. This guy has a Wit's End thrown in instead of the Death Cap at the very end, but it is kind of the same general idea, right? So let's get straight into it without wasting any time. Right, so first off, we have the Glenda's Grease for the early AD and the Omnivamp, and then you go into Essence Reaver, which basically is mainly used to empower your Q for better wave clear as well as better poke. And then you go into Triforce, which basically gives you a lot of good stats. It makes you more tanky with the health, gives you attack speed, AD, and ability haste to allow you to spam your abilities just a little bit more. Also giving you the Spellblade passive, which you would normally auto-attack quite a bit in between your abilities, so that is pretty helpful. And then you go into AP, right? So the thing about AP is that it helps with multiple things. So first up, the Rift Maker, of course, helps you with Omnivamp and true damage. So in longer fights, you will be able to do a good amount of DPS. And in addition as well, building AP helps you do more burst damage on your Blight, which works very well against both tanks and squishies. Speaking of squishies, you have the Infinity Orb next, which gives you magic penetration as well as more AP to help with your Blight. And then also, of course, critting when you're low on health. Critting them when they're low on health, I should say, and helping you burst them down even quicker. And then, of course, you finally have the Death Cap just to boost the amount of AP you get from your initial 2 AP items. Right, so for the runes, if you guys take a look, all of them are basically going for Fleet Footwork, and Fleet Footwork is very good for a couple of reasons. Now, number one, you get the healing and sustain in lane, so it's very helpful in the laning phase. Number two, basically, you also get the movement speed just to, of course, allow you to kite around fights better. And finally, you also, of course, do get the attack speed, which allows you to get your Blight on more quickly, right? So other than that, it's pretty much a standard loadout of Brutal, Giant Slayer, as well as Alacrity, and then you have Bone Plating for the defensive capabilities. And finally, you have Flash, Extra Summon Spell, and normally you go for Cleanse against teams with CC, and Ghost otherwise. Of course, Barrier and Exhaust also very viable. But with all that said, let's move on to the gameplay. Alright, so now let's get into the gameplay itself. Of course, before we get too deep into it, of course, as usual, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Any questions, queries, or remarks, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Of course, I'll be sure to address them. Alright, so taking a look at Varus, right? I seriously think Varus is the best ADC at the moment. Now, I think the only ADCs that can kind of compete with him is basically going to be like Corki and Sivir, but I think that ever since Corki and Sivir got their nerfs, I really don't think they're as good. Now, don't get me wrong, I still think after Varus, I think Corki and Sivir are the next two best ADCs, but I kind of feel that they aren't really on the same tier as Varus anymore. I think if you really were to really strictly kind of put it, I really think Varus is kind of like in the S plus tier, and then you could say Corki and Sivir are kind of in between the S tier and the S plus tier, and then of course you have the S tier champions. But I really do think Varus is quite a bit better than them, because basically, you have like basically everything, right? You have ranged poke, you have tank busting capabilities, you have anti-heal, you have a huge teamfight ultimate, and you can basically build whatever you want, right? You can build on hit, you can build crit, you can build AP, you can build a mix of those, then you can go for the famous Essence Reaver Triforce kind of build. As Lucian here goes super aggressive, and then of course you have you have the ability to build even tank, right? So you basically have a lot of different kind of options you can go for. You have a lot of tools. Now, the only thing you don't really have, of course, is mobility, right? And that's why things like Ghost on Varus is very helpful. And, of course, things like Fleet Footwork as well is very helpful. Now, of course, with the Fleet Footwork, you are missing out on, like Lethal Tempo, attack speed, or Phase Rush, something like that. Phase Rush could work very well as a rune as well, aside from, of course, Fleet Footwork, right? Phase Rush, giving you the ability haste as well as giving you that movement speed is also very helpful. It's kind of just that at the current moment, Fleet Footwork is a lot more popular. Poppy is now coming in onto the lane, and unfortunately, our Vi does end up going down, so we aren't able to really help her out very much. Alright, so now we are just going to continue on going about our business of farming. Now, of course, we did trade 1-for-1 there. Senna actually picked up both of the kills just now on myself and Leona. So this means that I'm currently on par with Lucian, who now has 3 assists. And now Senna does have 2 kills and an assist. So as a result, we are behind the Senna, but basically on par with the Lucian. Right, so I did mention, of course, that Varus does have a very strong early game. However, in this case, we're playing against Lucian and Senna. Both of them have really strong early games as well. So you can't really see a lot of the power of Varus in the early game. Because Senna, of course, is very high range and can kind of outrange you and poke you down like what she's been trying to do this entire time. And Lucian, if he can dash on you, can get off a lot of damage onto you. And then as a result, would put you in a situation where you can't get bursted down very easily. Now, Varus does have a really decent amount of burst himself. However, I don't think he can compete with the burst damage of a Lucian early game, because he does have to stack the blight, he does have to hit the arrow and things like that. Whereas Lucian, a lot of the burst damage comes from his double auto attacks, which you can't really miss. Of course, Q is a lot of damage as well, but I'm not very confident of winning against the Obamas here. So we are gonna play a little bit more cautiously in the early game and just try to scale up, right? I do think Varus will outscale Lucian, maybe not Senna, but definitely will outscale Lucian. Now here Leona goes in onto Lucian. I'm able to actually hit the ulti onto Lucian, into the Leona ulti, and into 3 stacks of Blight arrow, and then into another 3 stacks of Blight into the E. Right, so we are able to burst on Lucian even through his barrier, so that is a pretty nice burst damage coming from us. Right, and then, so as a result, we dispatch the Lucian, we get another kill. We are getting towards building our Essence Reaver. Now, as I say very often in basically every Varus video, Varus is basically the only champion in the game right now who builds Essence Reaver, right? So, Essence Reaver build path is kind of horrible, right? So you will have things like Caulfield's Warhammer and things like that in the build, instead of getting like a recurve bow or a BF sword. So the build path is kind of horrible. So until you complete the Essence Reaver, even if you get kills in the early game, it's that you really aren't as strong as you think you are, because the items that you get are just trash. So here Leona gets CC onto the Senna. We're able to finish off the Senna, and our whole team is coming for the Lucian. Poppy is here as well. Poppy gets chain CC. Lucian is in trouble as well. We somehow get the kill on Poppy before we get ejected by her ultimate. So we are able to pick up the kill there, I guess, from the hail of arrows just launching before we get hit away. We actually get the shutdown onto Poppy, and now we're now we're at 4-0, and now we're suddenly like 1k plus goal ahead of Senna and almost 2k ahead of the Lucian. So we're now in suddenly a really good spot. When we complete the Essence Reaver, of course, as I mentioned, that's a huge spike, and then we're going to go into Triforce next. Right, so at this point, both objectives have spawned, and we want to be going to the objectives to contest them if needed. However, you can see with the wave clear abilities, we can basically almost instantly clear the wave, pop the auto onto the Senna. Now the waves are in an even state, so we can't afford to rotate here a little bit. Now we get off a couple autos onto the Senna, but we don't actually manage to pop the Blight onto her. We try to get the arrow to pop the Blight, but unfortunately it's not hitting. So it's fine. I mean, our team does secure the Dragon, enemy team gets the Herald, which obviously I always think Herald is the better one to go for. And here just trying to disrupt the backs, but unfortunately we don't actually get it. And now we are going to continue on to push, right? So with our advantage now, it's going to be really hard for Senna and Lucian to fight us. Of course, we talked all about their early game power, but when you're down a couple of kills and when you're against a fat Varus, the situation kind of changes quite dramatically, right? So here we are able to basically get all of the tower plates. Lucian is now back in lane, trying to chase Leona a little bit, but of course he knows that he cannot really chase too far, right? Because the moment he's out of the safety of his tower, Leona can basically just engage on him. I get off a really good amount of poke onto the both of them and remove the bone platings as well. Stun goes in from Leona, and I'm just going to chain CC onto the Senna. I believe that Leona was actually trying to out the Lucian there, but kind of auto-targeted onto the wrong target instead of manual targeting. So Senna, whatever the case is dead to rights. And of course she is worth more gold than the Jhin, considering Jhin did die 3 times. So it's not really bad that we killed the Senna either. Leona here is now 1 HP. However, there is still 1 plate left, so I'm still just going to go for the plate as Leona backs into the bush, just at a safe distance, hovering, and can help me in case anything happens, but is very low. We do end up getting the tower, but it isn't first tower, of course, because the enemy team did use Herald to get the first tower top lane. Now we're at 5-1-1 with tower taken down. We have the most gold in the game by a mile. And what we want to do is, we want to first push up bot lane. And then after that, we want to rotate from bot lane, and then go to go to another lane and try to get tower plates or at least help them out, right? Senna is already into another lane, right? So here we just want to basically instantly wave clear. Now, if Lucian is stupid enough to go close, which he is, we're just gonna take him out. I don't know if we even need to ult here, so we're actually not gonna. So we're gonna save the ult. Now we're gonna go mid where there's a lot of people here, and we're gonna see if we can make a play, right? So unfortunately we get rooted. We're gonna cleanse out. Here I'm getting hit by the Poppy. I'm taking quite a bit of damage. I get ulted out of the way, but we are going to walk back to the fight and try to use this ulti that we have. There we go. And yeah, so we do deal quite a bit of damage. We're pretty low HP though, but we can still use our use our range. However, we kind of missed that a little bit, and we end up dying to the Poppy and giving her a shutdown. I guess Poppy is the most fed member on her team by a mile, right? So giving her the shutdown is not really a very good idea. But I mean, obviously we didn't want to die intentionally. But anyways, our team is able to clean up the rest of the fight, and we're able to pick up the Triforce. So we basically got the golden combo of Triforce plus you know, Essence Reaver that I'm always talking about. Like basically I think this is Varus' core build. After this you can go for anything you want. You can go for Lethality, which I didn't even mention at the beginning of the video, by the way, of all the builds that you could go for. So here Lucian is in a spot of bother. I'm just gonna do a little bit of damage and let Vi finish the job. Let Vi get the kill there. She is pretty far behind, and the assist is good enough for me. I don't want to waste too much effort you know, trying to over chase here and get to the skirmish there. So now with them dispatched, I can rotate to other lanes and try to continue to translate my lead to other people. Now, while securing kills for yourself is pretty important, you do want to let your teammates get a couple kills here and there to get them back into the game. Now, it kind of depends on how they're playing. If they're playing horribly, probably it's not a good idea to give them kills, but otherwise it's fine, you know, to give other people kills, right? So yeah. So here, honestly, at this point, we kind of killed Lucian and Senna quite a bunch of times. However, we never want to let them push in lane and get tower very easily, unless you know we're going to trade it for Baron or a nice play on the other side of the map. If we have nothing else better to do, we should kind of always be defending, you know, this lane. And that is only logical. So here, a huge fight is kind of breaking out here. You can see we're doing a bunch of damage to Poppy, and Leona is face tanking Lucian ulti. Unfortunately, I missed the ult onto Poppy. The auto target went onto Senna instead. Should have definitely manual targeted there. And here we're trying our best to finish off the super fed Poppy, but it's not really working out. Trying to aim the arrow to hit the Poppy, and she does get hit, by the way, but she ends up becoming 1 HP and doesn't actually die. So it's a little bit unfortunate there. In the meantime, Vi is now doing the dragon, and she's already gotten it without even my help, right? So now I'm gonna just recall and then pick up some items, head back out onto the map, and maybe farm the bot side jungle, or maybe help Volibear, right? I see Volibear in trouble. I'm gonna try to hit over there to help him. I'm pinging them on the way if he can survive, but his health is going down way quick. Now, unfortunately, he dies before I actually reach, so I'm not going to want to walk into Irelia and Poppy, so I'm going to have to retreat here, head back over and get this red buff, right? But with Leona and Vi here, the two engagers of the team, we might be able to get something done. Either onto the Poppy or onto the Irelia, but doesn't really look like it though, so I'm just gonna check the bush there, make sure that I'm not gonna get jumped on. They're taking our mid lane tower, and we're not gonna be able to stop them there, unfortunately. And Morgana's gonna run straight into them, right? So it might be a fight here. I'm gonna one-shot that wave there, as you guys can see. And just checking here, there is the Poppy running straight into the Morgana here. Poppy ults the Leona away, but can't ult me away, and I'm able to complete the kill onto her. So now Baron is going to be spawning pretty soon, but my team is not really very far ahead, right? Collectively, we're kind of 3k gold ahead, but most of the gold lead is kind of on me, right? So we're not really far ahead as a team, so we can't really just do the Baron. We kind of need to look for you know, picks and stuff. So here, unfortunately, it looks like Leona is getting caught out in mid lane, I believe, and she's kind of getting run down at the moment. This is not good, right? Volibear and Leona dying before Baron spawns is not good. Now, Leona is still getting run down, and I'm now trying to see if I can help her. Now, she's managed to bait the entire enemy team all the way in. However, she ends up dying, and the enemy team is probably going to Baron. And here, somehow, the enemy team doesn't actually go Baron, which is kind of int, right? If you kill, like, 2 people on the enemy team, going to Baron is probably the way to go, right? But they don't actually end up doing that. So I think that's a huge int, and that's a huge win for my team. And here Vi engages onto the Poppy. I'm trying to burst Poppy down. Big prediction flash, by the way. Like, I remember making this play, and I knew that Malphite was going to ult me there. Because, I mean, it couldn't be any more obvious, right? The high value ADC, of course you want to ult him. And I somehow survived this entire situation with Irelia running me down. Leona is able to like, stun her and, like, basically peel her off me for long enough to actually survive. That is insane, to say the least, right? I can't believe I survived there, and I'm able to pick up my Riftmaker, and we're able to get away with it, basically. So here I'm going to push this huge wave while my team is busy monkeying around in mid. No real point pushing the mid lane at this point. I mean, of course there is a point of pushing mid lane, but you don't want to be so far overextended in mid lane, you know, unless you have a good reason for it, which in this case I don't really think so, right? So I'm just going to push out the side lanes and get the farm that no one else is getting. And now we're gonna head back out. Now, you can see a huge fight breaking at the Baron area. Now, the issue here is that I'm not quite there yet. Leona is getting burst down at the moment. I'm finally making my way to the premises. Somehow my ulti hits nobody, but now I killed Irelia. I'm trying to chase down the Poppy. It's not happening, though. Now we're trying to see if we can reach the top side of the fight. Volibear's already picked up 2 kills. Now, I expect that by now Malphite should not have ult, so I'm just walking forward and not being really scared of the ulti. Vi ult comes in, able to lock down the Poppy. Now Malphite is building AP, so he's really squishy. He completely gets destroyed underneath of the tower. And we're now going to be able to get the Baron because it's a clean ace with a 1-for-5 trade, and we should be able to get this Baron for absolutely free. No one on the enemy team can even attempt to contest this Baron. We do get polymorphed by the Baron though. But aside from that, we're a-okay. We're going to secure the Baron. There is even Soul on the cards if we're able to actually get there in time. Now, Vi is actually going straight there, but I think that we should be resetting because we got a ton of gold from the kills, and just getting the Baron gives you the Empowered Recall as well, right? So we should be able to just run out of base and then to the Dragon. I don't even think the enemy team should be contesting this Dragon because now at this point, we are really far ahead. We get the Mountain Soul, which is of course just minorly helpful just for that little bit of a small shield. Volibear is just running straight into the enemies and ulting in. I'm not sure if that's advisable, but Volibear is kind of broken, right? So maybe it's fine, right? So here, I'm going to ult the first target, which is the Poppy. Unfortunately, the ult spreads to nobody. Malphite had already ulted previously onto the Volibear, so we're safe from Malphite ult. Now here we're trying to snipe the Senna, but she barely is out of our range. Poppy ult is dodged. And Poppy phase rushes out of danger. Now Volibear, yeah, look at that, by the way. Look at the damage onto the Poppy with the full stacks, right? Now we're going to just try to snipe people and poke them out, as you guys can see here. And this tower should be absolutely free. Morgana just one-taps the tower. Now here Lucian will be in trouble if he sticks around. Here he flashes to dodge Morgana. Malphite ults absolutely nothing once again. Now here I'm trying to force this tower, but it's getting a bit dangerous. Irelia hits the ulti, but gets chain CC'd by Morgana and myself. And actually not even myself, right? Because I didn't actually use the ulti, right? But we're able to basically kill her. And now we can basically reset and get the Infinity Orb, like so.
Enemy turret destroyed.
So at this point with the Baron, with a huge lead and such, all we need to do is obviously just to close out the game. Personally, as Varus, all you want to do is of course just play safe. Of course you want to help your teammates pick up kills and such, but you don't want to put yourself at unnecessary risk for that. So here, unfortunately, we are in a pretty risky position, all things considered, right? Because we are between Poppy and a wall. That's not where we want to find ourselves. So here we get rid of the Poppy. Malphite now. Boom! We basically just one-shot that Malphite, who of course is building full AP, so he is squishy, but that's still really impressive damage from the Varus. And yeah, so the last couple of enemies struggling to defend their base. Here we're just gonna go for the top lane tower. Volibear is pushing in the bot lane tower, and the bot lane tower is kind of 1 HP at the moment. Leona Engage goes in, Via Engage follows up, and they're just gonna get rid of them. Now we're just gonna ult the Irelia to prevent any follow-up. Irelia pops the QSS really late. However, we're not tanking a lot of damage. Now here I notice my Volibear is ending the game, so I'm just running. Now very important here, we don't want to kite and we don't want to use any spells. Irelia cannot catch us unless we stop to auto or stop to use spells. So we actually escape with our life here, and we actually end up winning the game whilst Irelia is chasing us. So I'm going to leave you guys with the stats as usual. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.